All right, I'm late. I know, I'm late, but I'm busy, okay? And I just realized too that I made this whole cup of coffee like an hour ago. It's still kind of warm. This is kind of gross. It's still kind of warm, and I haven't even drank any of it. And now you guys want me to drink whiskey and talk to you about number crunching on rental properties and all that. And you know what? Fuck it, I'll drink whiskey. Because that was decaf anyways. I've been trying to drink decaf and it tastes like dog shit. Excuse me for cursing. Why am I even what's wrong with me? Apologizing for cursing. What I do have is the last of the yellow spot, just a little bit left, that I've been hiding. I've been hiding it from Mike because he comes and sits on my couch over here on these lives and he taxes me on my whiskey. They're usually gifts from clients anyways. But he taxes me because he says, oh, 50% equity. I get 50% of your whiskey. And now he's on vacation. So I've been stashing away some of the good stuff. And I'm going to be drinking it without him. Actually, you know what? Be a nice guy. No, fuck. I'm not going to be a nice guy. Pour it up. Bye-bye. This is a celebration. This is a celebration of something hilarious that happened yesterday. I was DMing with one of our regular followers over here. And he sent me a listing in Washington, D.C. He's not from Washington, D.C. He's just poking around for rental properties. Cheers. Oh, dude, that was a heavy pour. Holy shit, I'm not drinking all that. He sent me a listing from Washington, D.C. on a duplex. The last picture of the 15 was a screenshot of my deal calculator that the realtor filled out and posted to help market the listing. I was dying. It was the most hilarious thing ever. I don't know why. I'm not drinking at all. Fuck it, I'll fucking drink it all. Come on now. I was having a beer and working. I was at a brewery. And I just saw it pop on my phone. I just started laughing my ass off. So the Invest with Ace deal calculator has spread far and wide, right? It's going to be like a social media legend, a spreadsheet by itself. Pretty hilarious because it's not fancy. It's just intended to be able to crunch the numbers like quick. The reason that we built it here was a long time ago when it was just Mike and I. I was on the phone with sellers, or Mike would be on the phone with a seller negotiating up a deal and asking them questions about the rents and their asking price and some of the expenses. And we had nowhere to punch the numbers in, right? Or it would take too long to punch the numbers in, and we didn't know what we could offer them or counteroffer or like where our starting point was or if we could even qualify the deal. So just made this quick sheet where you could just go pop, 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 input, input, input while you're on the phone, and then have an output fast enough that you could tell the seller, that price isn't gonna work, it's gonna have to be here. So we could place it at our sale price because we're wholesalers, right? Or if it's property we're gonna keep, place our acquisitions price and say, is this the cap rate we need? Cool, how much spread do we need? Like from a decomposition standpoint, right? Go backwards and say, okay, we could sell it for 100. This guy's asking 90. Yeah, we want 25 in spread. It's got to be 75. So it was just this little quick tool, and it's turned into this like wildfire, like semi-viral. I don't know how many copies have sold. Like I think 8,000 or 9,000 copies have sold. I think it's been selling like 1,000 copies a month, like 1,100 copies a month. It's kind of nuts. You guys could do the math on the numbers there. I just revealed our spreadsheet income to you, but whatever, fuck it, I don't care. I'm an open book, you guys know it. And it's cheap, but a lot of people ask when they get into that spreadsheet, they go, Elliot, do you have a video that explains exactly how to use this, right? And like using it's pretty easy. When you're crunching numbers on any rental property, I mean, like using your calculations tool, whatever you built in Excel, if you have your own, right? Or even doing it on paper. The math is really easy. It's understanding how to put the right numbers into each box and then being able to make a decision on this is the video that teaches you how to use it, by the way. It's a refresh of the video that teaches you how to use it. I just don't have a visual of it, but I'm going to go over all these different numbers, which is the most important part. Being able to do the math is easy. Being able to get the right numbers into those input slots is the hard part. Being able to interpret the output slots correctly, cap rate, sale price that you should purchase the property at, the ROI that you're targeting, how do you know if it's a safe investment? All of those things are, what kind of apple juice is that? Mott's, I don't know. All of those things, making those decisions around income, expense, and yield, they're much harder than just doing income minus expense, times 12 months divided by my sale price. Oh no, that's my cap rate. Who fucking cares about that stuff, right? That's easy stuff. So what I've got for you is the number crunching 101 right here. And I've posted this as a story so you can see my kind of whole outline for this thing, and it doesn't have explanations, but you can kind of just steal this information and then use it as you watch this live and take notes, maybe over the weekend, or if you're watching it on YouTube. I'm posting it on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to the YouTube just in case Instagram puts me in jail for another weekend. You can still find me. But I've got some different notes. We're going to talk about all the different income items of a traditional rental property, the expense items, and then being able to like make a cap rate determination and then assess the property or value the property appropriately, and therefore your offer based on the cap rate that you get out of there. Now, one thing I want to note is that this is not for your big syndication property. I'm sorry, guys, I don't do big syndications. I make plenty of money doing these little properties. That's my specialty. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that space because there's far less competition, and there's a much higher likelihood in the range of smaller properties for mispricing. Mispricing means big instant equity. You don't get big instant equity with these $10, $20 million syndication type deals, $50 million, $100 million type deals without doing significant value add or having a major operational advantage. Little syndications could work too, but just a heads up, this is my specialty, right? And if you're in this kind of group, this following, then you probably aren't chasing 100 unit properties right now either and raising funds. There's a lot of meat on the bone in the smaller stuff. I'm not saying don't do the other one. We are gonna probably pursue a joint venture model and still use, or a fund model, and still use smaller properties as the product for it. So these simple methods, they apply. IRR, you don't need it right now. Net present value, you don't need it right now. I understand those things. I use them oftentimes in like project management when I worked for biotech. They're way overthinking it. And you know what's funny is I've noticed that when it comes to investing in like small to medium sized properties, the really, really smart people, like the overly technical people, they tend to be shitty consumer grade investors because they lack that scrappiness and like that ability to deal with, like, live in a world of intangibles. And just be able to move forward. They get really hung up on technical details. So this is not about that kind of property. This is about consumer grade investment property, 1 to 20 units. Call it that you're buying with your own money. I'm not about the other people's money thing right now. Because if you're using other people's money, you're probably a pretty good operator anyways, which means you're probably pretty skilled, which means you probably weren't broke. That's my opinion on other people's money. Anyways, income starts first, right? So let me have another drink before I start this because I've got a tall glass in front of me and you guys are imploring me to finish it. We start with income. The first thing you want to verify about the rental property that you're evaluating, on the phone with a seller, right? Or getting an email from a broker, whatever it might be. What's it currently renting for? What are the current rents for all units and some supplemental rents that we'll talk about as well? You can take that off a rent roll or over the phone at first. I mean, you can get it on the phone first, right? Just to be able to crunch your numbers, plug it into the calc and see if it looks good at the asking price. But once you get it over the phone, you're probably gonna wanna get it off a rent roll next when you get into escrow to verify it. And a rent roll is gonna have the tenants' names, how long they've lived there. So when they moved in and moved out is really important. The type of lease they're on, if they're on a lease, the term and duration of the lease, and their current rents, obviously. Right, that's all you're verifying there. As you proceed through escrow, so before you make the offer, you just ask them for the rents over the phone, right? Maybe you get a rent roll if it's a lot of units and they don't have it off the top of their head. Once you make the offer and you get into escrow, you're definitely going to want a rent roll by then if you haven't already collected it. It's just going to tell you unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, basically break down the tenants by unit and the unit type and then all the other information I just told you, right? So you have some traceability attached to each unit. And make sure you get that, by the way, when you're on the phone. Traceability when it comes to getting current rents and assessing market rents is extremely important because it gives you an idea of your game plan to get from current to market. You want to make sure you understand that the $500 rent is in unit 1 front, which is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath unit and a tenant that's been there for 2 years, so that when you have this path to market rents for the unit, you know which tenant that corresponds to and which situation that corresponds to, right? So get the current rents, get some traceability, get the rent roll once you get the offer signed, get leases as you proceed through escrow because your bank's probably gonna want them anyways. And if leases aren't present or leases aren't current, and by not current, I mean like if it's month to month, the lease is expired or it just doesn't exist anymore, never did in the first place, you're gonna wanna get something called an estoppel letter. Essentially, you're gonna get an estoppel letter in any situation where you have reason to believe that or you don't have strong verification of the verbal terms of the current lease in place. right? Or the tenant's tenancy, their residency in general. An estoppel letter is usually a one-pager. It's essentially a, hey, this is what my lease says. Me, seller, says that this tenant is paying this under these terms, and the tenant reviews the estoppel letter and signs and verifies that they are. That's extremely important. Sometimes it's best to get it yourself. You can ask the seller to have the tenants get it, but if you think the seller's a little bit shady, maybe you get their email or their phone, or you have your property manager meet them before closing and get the estoppel letter signed and verified so that you know that it's not forged. Because we've had forged estoppel letters for sure. We've seen a lot of faked stuff, or the tenant argues, oh no, I never signed that, when they really did. But what are you going to do? Send it to a handwriting specialist to verify their signature? No, that's not going to happen. So if you don't have strong leases, get the estoppel letters. Once you verify current rents, you want to evaluate market rents of your property, right? Because when you crunch those cap rates on your property, you want to be able to say, what is it now and what can I get it to? And then what's the path that I'm going to have to take to get it there? And that's going to help you have an understanding of what the property is really worth to you. Knowing its current situation, the upside situation, if it has any, and then the amount of work it's going to take from a time, effort, and financial resources standpoint to be able to get there. And also, does it fit your criteria because of that type of work? Is your management company even going to be willing to do that, right? So market rents is a big piece of stabilization, understanding that delta between current and what this property needs to become. So to get market rents, there's a variety of ways. It's an art because it really does vary from unit to unit, street to street, block to block, and property to property, and management company to management company. So the first tool I would use, especially if you're not ultra familiar with the market, is just hop on Rentometer. If you're evaluating deals regularly, and I don't have an affiliate deal with them, I tried to get one, but those guys are fucking straight nerds. When I talked to them, they're horrible to work with. And like, I'm a nerd. They did not even want to talk to me, even though they really wanted the affiliate deal, and it was just difficult. But hop on Rentometer. If you evaluate market rents often, pay the $100 a year to get the pro subscription. That's what we've got here. Rentometer is going to spit out, when you put in an address for a property and you filter by property type, 2-bedroom units, apartment or house or duplex, 2-mile radius of this address, the last 2 years or 1 year, whatever it is, you put all these input characteristics in, and then it's going to spit out a bunch of comparables. So it's actually going to give you a list of rental properties that it's crawled the internet and is found listed for rent over the past 2 years. So it just kind of steals and keeps those records off the internet. Even when the listings are no longer available, you can go back and review them. It's going to produce also a median and average, and then rate of increase and variability and range and all that stuff too, right? Don't use the median and the average rents that it spits out. What you want to do is you want to look at the actual rental comps that it lists and really compare the properties to make sure they are truly similar to your unit that you have available to be able to assess market rent correctly. And then consider that some landlords list shit for cheap, right? Some overprice theirs. Some units are going to be smaller than yours in square footage. You're going to want to look for that. Some are going to be larger. Some are going to be further away. Some will be a long time ago, 2 years ago. So you really want to evaluate those rent comps and critically think and go, what may be different about this comparable unit that's available or that was listed at some point for this price than mine? And how can I upwards or downwards adjust my expectation of market rent to account for the differences between this unit and my unit, or this situation and my situation? So that's the technical approach to Rentometer, right? You really got to get in there and look, guys, whenever you're making these market rent estimates, what you don't want to do, you can't be overly conservative because you'll never get a deal if you are, right? But you definitely don't want to be the optimist. I see a lot of people that are like, oh my God, this unit in this big nice complex with a pool and like a game room and all kinds of shit is renting for $1,000, so I could definitely get $1,000 for mine or $900 for mine. But you don't have any comparable units that are actually like yours in a fourplex, let's say, that have shown at 1,000. Maybe 800's the best one. And maybe they're kind of dingy and they were a long time ago, so you call it 850. But don't go comparing yours to the best case. If you have a range of comparables that all represent your property in some way or another, you don't want to choose the one that's better than your property and then set your baseline there. Right? You want to choose the ones that are equal to it. If they're worse, go up a little bit. But if they're better, you got to come down from that. You can't use that number. That's probably the best way to, without actually talking to a professional or understanding a market, evaluate market rent. One other supplemental tool is taking a look at listings that are currently available on the market right now. And if you don't have something similar, if you can't find a 2-bedroom apartment in a fourplex, then you can look at a 2-bedroom unit in a duplex and say, well, it might be a tiny bit higher because the square footage is higher in this duplex. You might say, hey, look, there's single family homes available. So I see that the duplex comps here are $850. There's a single family home, a 2-bedroom home for $1,000. The duplex comps that I see are all smaller than mine, and maybe $875 is the maximum I can get. So you can look at properties that aren't super duper identical or comparable and use them to set set the stage, right? To appropriately stage your comparables and say, this is a range of things that are better, worse than mine. Where does mine really fall in here? Make sure the picture makes sense. Make sure the story makes sense. No one's gonna rent out your 2-bedroom apartment in a fourplex for $850 if you are going to have a single family home or single family homes in the area that are 2 bedrooms as well are also renting for $850 or $875. You're gonna have to be realistic. So set the stage with different types of properties to understand where yours should fall above and below those. Property managers are probably the easiest way to get market rents. Now, property managers can be either over-promising or under-promising. The good ones tend to be conservative when they give you an estimate over the phone, and then when they get to the property, they could usually do a little bit better. You've got to learn to emotionally navigate this situation without pressing them too hard, because you don't want to seem like you're needy or you expect too much. I got work to do. You don't want to seem like you're needy or expect too much, right? But at the same time, you don't want to undersell your property's ability to generate income. So you might want to ask targeted questions like, hey, I've seen that these properties nearby are listed for about this much. Could we push for that potentially? And if it doesn't land there, what do you think it would land at? And if they say, yes, we can absolutely push for that, then that means that if they're good at what they do, they could probably get you that number and maybe something just slightly below, and then land at worst case at the first conservative estimate. So you got to learn to have these conversations with these property management companies, and you got to learn not to ask too much of them. One, you can't ask for guarantees from them. They'll never give it to you, right? Let them know that your expectation is not a guarantee. Two is, don't make the push when you're just meeting them and just building the relationship, right? Understand that they're going to shoot you low. You're a low priority early on. Accept your role, or what do they say? Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane until you're worth something to them, and then make those pushes, right? You're just getting into the game when you're new. You want to show them that you're a good client to do business with, and then ask, and then ask, and then ask. So be reasonable for your asks. Experience is big too. Guys, you show me a property in East Chicago, Indiana, or Racine, Wisconsin, or certain neighborhoods of Louisville, Kentucky, and I know what it's going to rent for, right? I mean, I'm just going to shoot it right out. You give me some comps too, and I could probably spit it out. So understand a market well if you're going to kind of really dig deep into it, and that's going to help you stay on those rent comps. Look at what's available, what's been out there, and what's rented quickly, and talk to people in the market. When you talk to sellers, you'll find out too. You'll have experience with past people that have tried to sell you properties that are renting their units for this certain price. So that's a reasonable assumption to be able to get that kind of rent. So past experience is big. You will get to a point where you could just shoot from the hip. We've gotten to that point, but it takes time. So additional income besides rents. And guys, I know it's long, but market rents are really important. You guys overestimate them all the time. When you underestimate them, you miss deals. When you overestimate them, you burn yourself because you overpay. Additional income is pretty straightforward. Garage and storage. Sometimes we see storage. We see garage pretty often. You want to see that on a lease or an estoppel letter or built into their current lease agreement. Laundry, you're not going to be able to get on lease, right? That's like a P&L type thing, and it's a pretty small number. So you're going to want to pro forma that out just with past knowledge. I know that a fourplex with all 2-bedroom units in this area tends to bring in about $25 a month per unit for laundry, right? $30 a month per unit for laundry if this family's living in them. If utilities are being repaid to you by the tenant, you want to see it in a lease. It's got to be in the lease with a clear definition of exactly how that's being calculated or what amount they're going to be paying you back. Flat rates are the easiest way to do this. Dividing it up, property managers hate that. Some sellers do it, mom and pop sellers. You're going to have to convert that over once you switch the property to a management company. So the tenants are going to have to re-sign an amendment to their lease saying it's not going to be all the utilities divided by 3 every month. It's going to be an extra $50 a month. So you want to see that in the lease for sure. And then late fees, you'll see that on a P&L statement sometimes, but you're not going to be able to verify very easily unless you have a bank ledger. And don't go asking sellers on a fucking fourplex for a bank ledger. You're going to come across as a nitpicky, annoying buyer. They'll go find someone that's easier to work with than you. That's income. Expenses. Now I got to blaze through this because I spent a bunch of time on income. You want to get your expenses right, and remember they could be higher than what the seller tells you or what you're hoping for them to be. Disconnect emotionally from the property being a deal when you estimate the expenses. The first one's going to be property taxes. Current property taxes are not necessarily tomorrow's property taxes or next year's once you actually purchase the property if you end up buying it. Property taxes are determined as a rate of an assessed value. That's not an appraised value. That's not what the property is necessarily worth when you go to buy it. That's what the county assesses it to be over some period of time. Now, they usually start with your purchase price, and then they just have this algorithm adjust it upwards or downwards over time, and you could appeal sometimes too. So if you buy a property from someone who bought it for dirt cheap, way below market value in the crash, I saw that in arrears comment, Sean. If someone bought a property for dirt cheap in the crash, their tax assessment might be really low if the city or the county has not reassessed it upwards over time. So you might see a property with a $200 tax bill. I bought a threeplex for 25 grand years ago once, lucky deal. The tax bill was like $400 a year, 36 bucks a month. No way that's what the tax bill is. It immediately jumped to $1,200 a year, big deal, $100 a month, right? So you want to look at what you're purchasing the property for and then try to get an idea of the county's tax rate at the new assessed value. Then you got to figure out what that new assessed value is going to be. Is it going to be your purchase price or is it going to be some amount below that? And when's it going to get reassessed? Are property taxes paid in arrears, which means 2020's bill is not due till 2021, 1 year later? If so, then your reassessment for 2021, you won't know about it when that bill comes in. You're going to find out about it in 2022 when that bill is due, right? So have those expectations. If all else fails, you're going to want to call the county and just say, I'm buying this property potentially for about this price. Do you have any ballpark idea of what my reassessment will be and what my tax rate is going to be? The way tax rates calculated can be very complicated in some places. They could take the property's market value, then take a certain fraction of it, and then take a percentage rate of that. And then sometimes they tack on something called a voter-approved initiative or an addendum, which is basically like something for improving the streets or the city's schools that locals have voted on. And investors tend to pay a higher tax rate than owner-occupants, right? In almost every single state, every single county. So you want to make sure that if you're buying the property from someone who's owner-occupying it and they have a homestead exemption, you're accounting for the fact that it's going to be a higher tax bill when you take it on as an absentee owner. So like I said, when all else fails, call the county, understand what's included. Sometimes tax bills include trash. Sometimes they include water and sewer. It's really interesting how it works. It varies completely from city to city, from county to county. So just dig in for that specific information and don't expect the seller's numbers to necessarily be your numbers at some point in the near future after you take over the property. And that's fine because you could raise the rents over time too, right? Easy one, insurance. You can ask the seller if you don't really know what insurance costs and you're new to the area, hey, what are you paying in insurance for this property? But they tend to either, one, overpay because they get like too high quality of coverage and they're mom and pop, so they just go for like some big agency that's going to overcharge them, or they undercover their property because they bought it for so cheap. You know, they bought it in 2011 for 100 grand and it's worth 200 now, and their coverage is still for 100 grand. They've never gone and increased the coverage. You're going to see a much lower quote there, right? So the best thing you can do is, yeah, you can get it from the seller over the phone. Just go, hey, by the way, about what are you paying in insurance? But then you're going to want to hop on a call with an insurance company and get some quotes. Get referrals for local insurance brokers. They tend to be able to give you the best prices you've seen. Get enough reps in. This is like rent comps. I know, I'm moving fast. So this is like rent comps where you want to see enough data points and over time you'll be able to just eyeball it, right? Like I know that a duplex for $120,000 in Indiana is going to be a $60 insurance bill with my insurance company for broad peril coverage with a liability policy attached to it at a $2,500 deductible, right? Something like that. Maybe it's $55 a month with that kind of deductible. So get on the phone with insurance companies, know what they cost. At different states, different amounts. Different types of coverage, different amounts. It shouldn't make or break a deal, to be honest with you. Just don't undershoot it. People undershoot their insurance all the time. There was a Seattle 7-plex for $3 million that I analyzed last week. You guys probably remember. I just trashed that broker. I had a hell of a time with it. It was fucking fun. They quoted 800 or 1,600 in insurance for a year. Maybe it was 800 in insurance for the year. 800 in insurance for a year on $3 million. I'm sure. No, sorry, it was 16. 16 in insurance, 130 a month, 140 a month on a $3 million property. That's how much I pay with a really good price on a $200,000 property, right? Or 250 or 220 or something like that. I knew it was bullshit, right? So don't let someone bullshit you on these low insurance numbers. Utilities are complicated. If I could say one thing, give you one piece of advice to be able to evaluate a utility situation, it's count everything. Count everything. Think about what that means while I breathe and have a drink. You want to count all the meters on your property, all the electric meters, all the gas meters, all the water meters. You want to count the trash cans outside. I'm not joking. Or the dumpsters. Especially if the water bill doesn't cover your garbage bill in a particular area. And then you want to count all the furnaces, hot water heaters, and sometimes AC units, because they can oftentimes be attached to multiple units at a time. If it is, that means that one tenant can't pay for a furnace that's heating someone else's unit and theirs. It's not legal. That means you have to put that bill in your name. That means you have to put that whole meter in your name. So anything else attached to that meter, their cooking gas, that's gonna have to go in your name as well. And you're gonna have to figure out a plan to be able to charge them back, right? So to figure out the gas bill, count the gas meters. What you frequently see in some of these Midwestern markets is, or even non-Midwestern markets, Southern markets too, right? Is you're gonna see a public meter. So a fourplex might have 4 gas meters and then a 5th one for the basement. Maybe it has like a laundry unit in there, right? It might not have a 5th meter because you have all 4 and you have a furnace attached to each one, so all the tenants pay for their own heat and their own cooking gas. You might have 4 units with 4 meters, one gas meter each, paying for their own cooking gas, and then the 5th meter, the public meter, has a boiler on it or a single furnace that heats the whole building. So you're only paying for the heat, they're paying for their own cooking gas. Count the gas meters, look at what kind of heating system they have, make sure that if it's 1 for 1, it all lines up. If there's any spaghetti in there, if things are getting crossed over, you're probably paying for something and having to figure out how to charge it back. Electricity is usually a little more simple. I mean, some of these properties have 1 gas meter and 1 electric meter and multiple units, and they're completely legal too in these older areas. They're not converted, or they were, but they're permitted or something like that. But with electric, usually it's pretty straightforward. What you want to look for is common areas that have electrical service attached to them, like hallways and outside lights. If you have a normal number of meters, like 4 for 4 units, and then you got an outside light, it's like, who's paying for that? Right, so you might be stuck paying for that. But oftentimes on a fourplex, you'll have 5 electrical meters. That's something that we don't see a lot of mess with very often. Every once in a while it can be, so just count the electrical meters, trace them to their units, trace them to whatever the hell is happening in that building. And if there's any public electrical usage, a washer or a dryer that's electrical, outside lights, hallway lights, then you've got to pay for something, right? Just remember that. Water is interesting. In these older properties, in a lot of these markets that we operate in, you pay the water bill. That's it. And the tenants have a certain rent amount that they pay to you, considering the fact that the water bill is already covered, right? So it's not that big of a deal. Don't try to go into a 200K fourplex and then split the water up and then charge it back to the tenants. They're gonna just pay less rent. You're not gonna be able to fill it for the same amount, right? So it's not as value add as you think. You listen to these podcasts and they go, yeah, I went in there and I just sub-metered everything. I'm like, sure, that's great, but like tenants pay less when they have to pay all the utilities, depending on what's standard for the market. And when they don't have to pay utilities, you charge them more. It's not that complicated. So don't overinvest in cheap properties to do things like sub-metering a water meter. Make sure you understand if sewage and wastewater is included in that water bill, or if it's on the property tax bill, or if it comes in a separate bill. Make sure you understand how garbage is paid as well. Whew, man, I'm really moving. But I actually really like the dark room with the light though, because I don't have to turn the ring light up as bright, so I don't get as exhausted and like red in the face as I usually do on these lives, from the light being so bright in my face. Garbage can be complicated. You want to see if there's a separate garbage bill. You want to see if there's a dumpster on site. You want to see if the garbage bill is included in water. It's my experience that a dumpster for a 6-plex or an 8-plex, just a single standard size dumpster. I forgot the volume of it. It's about $60 a month in a lot of the cheaper cities that we operate in. So make sure you understand where that's attached to, right? That's utilities. That's the most complicated, the last complicated piece. I think after this, it gets a little bit easier, maybe with just a slight exception to vacancy and maintenance. Management is straightforward. They're going to charge you a monthly rate, 8%, 8.5%, 10%. One thing I will tell you is that I would not try to get a discount on management in exchange for lower level of service, because a shitty manager will lose you that 2% so freaking fast. Just pay the 10% for a good management company. They will give it back to you in value, I promise. When it's not 10 units or 8 units, sometimes management companies will charge you a bit more. They'll charge you 10. When you get up to a certain unit count, they might discount. Remember that management companies charge a fill fee too, half a first month's rent, sometimes all of first month's rent in certain markets, depends on what standard. They'll charge a releasing fee as well, something like $25 to sign a new lease with a tenant and renegotiate it. Big deal. Guys, remember, it's not all about every last dollar of cash flow. There's a variety of ways that your rental property generates income and kind of accumulates wealth for you. Don't nickel and dime your management company. Focus on high quality management. Bake that into your numbers. It's going to perform better. Shitty management companies tend to have like really, really bad rehab crews too. So you'll instantly, the second you have any work, pay it back in maintenance and repairs. Vacancy is interesting. With a big property, you're going to want to look at the P&L statements. With a small property, you want to understand what you're capable of doing and what that market can afford you as far as vacancy and turnover goes. You want to be in a market with high rental demand, landlord-tenant laws are favorable, rents are growing, there's an abundance of income sources for the tenant class that you're selecting in this particular market. And if so, then your vacancy rate should be like, once every 2 years per tenant, or if it's a little bit faster, incidentally, it should be a quick fill without a lot of work to the property, right? If your manager's doing a good job. P&L is a profit and loss statement. It's the seller's historical financial results of the property. They're giving you basically their income and expenses over the past 2 years, month over month. It'd be nice to the question askers. So with vacancy, I don't really look at actuals on small properties. I pro forma it every time. It's based on the market and how I know it performs. It's based on the management companies I have available to me in that market. If I got a stronger management company, I'm not factoring in a very high vacancy reserve. If I have a management company I'm not very familiar with, or I have limited options, or I know that they can only handle easy situations, I'm usually not in that market at all, to be honest with you. But if I were, I would definitely factor in a higher vacancy reserve for that property management company. Your property's condition is going to affect the vacancy rate. The property's conformation, unit count, size, that's going to affect the vacancy rate. A basement unit, that's going to affect the vacancy rate. It's going to have a higher vacancy rate. So look holistically at the property, the market, and you as an operator, and say, how do these affect this property's vacancy rate? And then look at rental demand and rent growth. That's going to be a big factor, because tenants like to move more often in markets with slow rent growth. Markets that have rapid rent growth over time, tenants like to stay put, because they don't want to have to keep paying more. Every time they move, a good operator is not going to push rents to market on every tenant all the time that's long-term on these smaller properties. They're going to want to trade incidents, eventful occurrences, right? Vacancy, turn, unit turn from a maintenance standpoint, right? Improvements to the property. They're going to want to defer those or limit the occurrence of that by not pushing their tenant up too hard. They just push them up a little bit, and then they take like a much lower expense ratio in exchange. Tenant wins, landlord wins. So you definitely don't want to push it too hard. And in a market with growing rents, tenants know that if they move on a regular basis, they're going to pay a lot more. They're going to keep paying more. So they're probably going to want to stay, and you're going to have a very low vacancy cost and a lower maintenance cost. So maintenance really breaks down to a couple things. I mean, like repairing little shit, right? P-traps and stuff that wears out. Minor items that are really hard to stick to a capex budget. Cosmetic turns, which you can highly limit through one, quality improvements to your building, like LVP floors instead of carpets. They last a lot longer, right? Not painting the thing white every time because it gets dirtier faster, but investing in like gray, right? Two-tone, whatever it might be, is more attractive for tenants too. But investing in like colors that aren't going to show dirt. Same with your cabinets, right? Quality finishes without overspending could keep your maintenance costs down on the cosmetic side. Low turnover keeps your maintenance down on the cosmetic side. And then you want to evaluate capex. Now look, I don't bake capex into my maintenance budget. I prefer to bake short-term capex into my purchase price. I knock it right off the top. I want it in the form of credits or in the form of equity, because capex is pretty easy. Like, a roof isn't a lot of work and it doesn't really lose me money, right? Like, my tenants don't move out when I have to replace a roof or a furnace or a water heater. Windows maybe to some degree, right? Because I just wait until they move to replace them, but I'm not like displacing them and then replacing windows. And if the window really needs to be replaced while they're living in the unit, they're probably not moving out over it. So capex doesn't really like change my property's average monthly performance. I try to push it all into the purchase price. And then at some point though, the maintenance budget does have to cover the capex. Now, if you're buying a fundamentally strong property, I'm not encouraging appreciation bailing you out, but if you buy a fundamentally strong property and then you bake capital expenditure into your purchase price with substance, right? Like, there's a significant amount that you've baked in, and you've got that initial reserve through the form of that instant equity, right? Or that discount or that credit back that you get from the seller at closing. Then once you make those improvements that are coming up really soon, then at that point, you know, if a $1,700 furnace is gonna last you another 20 years, it becomes an average maintenance item that you'll probably get back in the form of capital gain on the property, through the debt pay down, through the appreciation of the property. And it also becomes very frivolous to track the value of all these items. Imagine saying, hey, my maintenance budget for like little repairs and upgrades is gonna be 5% as a rule of thumb, and then taking the cost of a roof and a furnace and windows and floors and paint and all dividing them all by the expected lifespan and then adding them all to your reserves. That's a ridiculous process. It's too much. Just bake it into your purchase price when it comes to capex, and then just buy the right properties that are gonna bail you out of that like roof 25 years from now, right? Or 30 years from now. You'll be fine. I promise. Don't overthink it. You'll be fine. Just buy decent deals. I like to use an ultra stable property that's a cheaper property with cheaper rents. 5% vacancy, 10% maintenance. If my rents are higher, if my rents are like $1,200-$1,300 a month per unit, maybe even $1,000, and they're ultra remodeled with high-end finishes, LVP flooring, new cabinets, bathroom's been done nicely, everything's like stable and durable, then I might say 8% on like an 800 rent, 2-bedroom unit. That's fine, especially if I know I'm getting a good value, right, in a good property, because you probably won't spend that 8% up front. So the best strategy for reserves in real time, not when you're crunching your numbers to make an offer, but once you actually own the property, is to just take all the rent profits and stick them in an account for the property until you get to a certain cap, a threshold. You have to determine that yourself. I can't tell you what that number is. 5K a unit for like cosmetics if you want to be conservative, and then determine how much mechanical reserve you're going to need at some point, right? But get to that cap, and then once you reach that cap, just take all the profits after that. That works too. So get to like a designated reserve amount that you assign to each bank account. Or just don't use the fucking cash flow. You're not supposed to live off it anyways, guys. Just keep it in a pool, keep it adequate, remain liquid, which is just a whole different strategy, but this is what I do. Remain liquid and just spend from that as needed, but don't overspend from that. Just keep accumulating with a reasonable reserve at all times for your whole portfolio, and you won't be worrying about, am I spending 8% maintenance or 12% maintenance on this good property that I bought? Just buy the good property and just put your money aside. And once you've got all that, there's all your expenses. I'm almost done. You're gonna determine your cap rate. You know how to do it, right? You guys all have the sheet anyways. 100,000 people have bought it and it's on Zillow now. And shameless plug, if you don't have it, it's in the bio. It's $35, guys. I mean, unless you want to build your own because you like building Excel sheets, it's cheap. Income minus expenses. All your rental income minus all these expenses that I just mentioned. That gets you your monthly net operating income, not minus your debt service. You don't want to subtract your mortgage payment from your operating expenses and your income, right? That is ROI, that's not cap rate. To get your capitalization rate, you're going to take all your income, you're going to subtract all your operating expenses that I just described. You're going to take that net operating income result and multiply it by 12 to get your annual net operating income. Then you're going to divide that by your purchase price to get your capitalization rate, or you'll divide it by the desired capitalization rate to get your purchase price that would get you that cap rate, right? Write it down. It's not that hard, I promise. The cap rate that you're going to want is based on a couple different factors. The biggest factor, I don't use cap rate to determine cash flow. That's not why I care about cap rate. I use cap rate as a valuation metric. Am I buying the property at an appropriate value based on its yield? So what you're going to want to do is compare it to other products in the market that are similar, right? So what's a good cap rate? If the market yields a 7 cap and you're getting a 7 cap, you're buying a property at a fair market value. If the market yields a 7 cap and you're getting an 8 and it's a comparable product to what these 7 cap products in this market are, then you're getting a pretty good deal. You're actually getting like a 15% discount from market value technically, or like a 14.5% discount, 14.4, something like that. Predictability is going to influence the cap rate. If your property is more predictable than the other comparables in the market, then paying a slightly higher price or getting a lower yield, a lower cap rate on this property, justifiable to some extent, right? Don't exceed that extent. Don't go buy a turnkey 5 cap in a 10 cap market just because it's so pretty and remodeled inside. That's stupid. You're never going to get your money back on that thing. You're walking into so much negative equity that the cash flow doesn't matter. Predictability helps, and then obviously you want a certain amount of cash flow, right? I use it as a valuation metric, but it's also a measure of safety, right? Or a margin of safety. You're gonna look at your cost of debt. I mean, you can calculate the ROI, right? Just take your down payment, so take your net operating income, subtract all the annual mortgage payments, and then divide it by your actual down payment amount on that loan, and that's your annual cash on cash return. But really what you wanna make sure is that your capitalization rate is some healthy amount over the cost of funds if you're getting a maximally leveraged loan. If you're getting a loan at 3.5%, my clients get like 2.7 through US Bank. Through outside banks, I get like 3.5, 3.6, smaller banks that are more flexible on terms for me, right? If you're getting a 3.5% interest rate on this property, if you got a 7 cap, you're probably pretty safe if it's a predictable, stable, and well-maintained property, and you've estimated these expenses correctly and the income correctly, and you have a solid path to improving it over time, and rent's going to continue to grow and all that, right? I don't like 4 caps in this market. Now, if you're in a 4 cap market, let's say you're in California, properties just don't cash flow. You're betting on appreciation. Look, I don't bet on appreciation without cash flow as a prerequisite, right? So if you're in California and you're making the appreciation play, whatever, I can't stop you, and you're getting a property and the market cap rate for this property should be a 3.5. If you're getting it at a 5.5, yeah, buy it. You're buying it for way less than what it's worth. And I'd probably sell it maybe after the 1 year mark to 1031 and avoid taxes if you could feel comfortable with that horizon, and move it into a different type of asset that I do want to hold long term. But discount rate matters as well, right? That's going to be a big part of it. But if you're looking for cash flow as a margin of safety, which I recommend you do, I think a 7 cap for a clean property is a pretty good idea, provided the market value is justified. And that's it. That's all I got to say about number crunching. I said a lot, actually. So now I'm going to I have not made 3.5 mil off deal calcs. I have not, but it makes good money every month. Everyone's surprised when I tell them how much it makes because it's just a couple of different spreadsheets. The due diligence guide is like that's the second best seller, but it should sell better than the rental property calculator. It's not as fun of a toy for everyone, which is why I think it sells less, but it's a far more useful and valuable product because it shares our knowledge and our process with you, not just a clean, easy presentation to efficiently crunch numbers like the deal calculator does. It's super sleeper. No one, gives it the respect it deserves, except for the people that buy it. They end up loving it. Give me some questions, guys. I'm gonna breathe and then drink some whiskey. Shit. What do we got? Shouldn't you know how to build a calc if you're gonna invest? Yeah, but it takes time, right? I didn't build that in 30 minutes. Just making it functionally pretty and streamlined, and then building the formulas. And I even had to research some of those formulas for amortization, right? And being able to calculate the difference between principal and interest. That took me an evening to do all that with a good amount of Excel knowledge, real estate investment knowledge, and I already had the nuts and bolts of it prepared in a more simple fashion. So yeah, dude, some people just want to save time instead of trying to rebuild something. $35 is the whole point. And this is not meant to be a pitch, but you're asking, right? And I want you guys to know kind of where my head's at with all of these products and the information that I give you. You should know this to be true by now. I want this to all be accessible. I want to get paid for my efforts for sure. I'm already doing this. I'm doing it to drive investors to our platform, which makes us way more money than the digital products that we sell. It's not even close. But if I'm going to do this, might as well monetize things that you guys have a demand for. However, my intention is 100% for everything to be so accessible, because the vision is still to make investing in real estate accessible for everyone. For the people that can afford to invest with us, we do that through our properties. For the people that can't, we do it through the free information here, and the people that are actually taking the steps to try to invest on their own, we do it through pretty cheap tools, right? Like $35 is, you and your buddy having 2 beers each. That's it, right? So I want everyone to have it. I want everyone to have it. And that's gonna be the case with the education program when it's released too. It's not gonna be thousands of dollars. It's probably gonna be $500, but it's also gonna be like, I've put in so many hours into making it. It's gonna be crazy comprehensive. And the goal is to prevent you from going and spending $10,000 on that 3-day course live somewhere and get the same information in process format, right? So it's all about accessibility with you guys. Where am I having beers? Wherever they serve them. Wherever they sell beer. Can you talk about best way to hold rentals for tax purposes? Look, I wouldn't overemphasize rentals as a tax shelter if you're not a real estate professional. What I would say is the tax benefits of your rental property, they're going to offset its rental income in many cases, even if you're not a real estate professional. And you can leave it at that and stop worrying about it, right? And you could take some passive losses if your income is not particularly high. I think the limitation is $100,000 or $120,000 income. If you make more than that and you're not a real estate professional, you can't use losses on your rental through like bonus depreciation to offset your income. I'm not a CPA. And also, learn like a CPA will tell you, right? And definitely never in an S Corp or a C Corp, yeah. Because I'm a real estate professional, I don't really know the limitations for non-real estate professionals exactly, but I would say this. If you really, really, really want to use rentals to never pay taxes, good luck offsetting W-2 income. Sorry, $150,000, good job. Thank you, man. If you really want to use rental income to offset taxes, one, you need to make a lot of money. Like, don't worry about like saving tax dollars on a moderately strong income. There's better ways or better things you could focus on. One, you need to make a lot of money. Two, you need to focus on becoming a real estate professional. If you really want to commit to investing in real estate and you want to make a ton of cash doing it, and you want to save a ton of tax dollars doing it, you need to qualify as a real estate professional, meaning you have to put at least 750 hours into the trade, like active material participation is the word the IRS uses. Talk to your CPA, guys. Like I said, I'm not that. I'm so obviously a real estate professional that I don't really know like the marginal stuff. But material participation of 750 hours or greater, and it has to be over 50% of the total work that you put in. So if you work a 40-hour-a-week W-2, there's no fucking chance you're gonna be a real estate professional unless you're married to someone that is. Then you get the status as well. It's like contagious, right? It applies to both. So not that I would advise marrying a realtor. I've got a bunch of realtors get pissed off at me for this, right? This is not me saying go marry a realtor, male or female, doesn't matter. But finding someone who's a real estate professional to be with, or if you are married and your partner has some flexibility in their ability to work and qualify, then maybe trying to get them to be a real estate professional. If you have a stay-at-home partner, getting them to meet the material participation requirements, that might be a good approach. Otherwise, stop trying to squeeze a ton of tax benefits out of it. Go focus on making more money. It's going to benefit you more than saving on those taxes from like a cost to reward standpoint. How much do I bench? My best bench, and I could post a video after this, was a paused 340. I don't have the video of the 340 actually. I have a video of me hitting 330 paused. That was about 2 summers ago. Best squat's 435. Best deadlift is 525 sumo. Not bad, right? Not bad. It's the drink. Just kidding. It's not the sauce. I don't drink much of this. 340. Yeah, 340. I got a 330 video. I'll post it for you guys. Seriously. With a dead stop pause, by the way. Books I recommend to read. I'm not a big book reader anymore. I think I broke myself off of books when I was like 25 because I just transferred my brain into like doing more. I got tired of books. They just like paralyzed me. They were great, full of information, but once you get so much, it gets redundant. At some point, like you become more focused on action and then just trying to find little nuggets of knowledge that you can immediately apply that are more concentrated instead of these like big diluted out books, right? So if I could tell you to read a book that changed my life, it was Good to Great by Jim Collins. When I was 21 or 22 years old, I read this book. It got me thinking about businesses that are really successful and why they're different. And then I applied that to like my actual jobs. I was so interested in business, even when I was working just on the, operator side of science, right? I was just a lab monkey for the first year of work. But I forced myself into business because it became so intriguing to me when I read that book, Good to Great by Jim Collins. 3 years ago, I read Blue Ocean Strategy. That was life-changing because I think it took a lot of principles that I already believed to be true in my business and then reaffirmed them and then made my ability to implement them a little bit more systematic, right? Predictable. How to come up with unique ways to innovate in your business and not have to compete wasn't just like lightning in a bottle anymore, or like special sauce or fairy dust, whatever the hell it was that Mike and I had in the beginning. It was actually scientific, right? And that made us more successful over time. It allowed us to focus on the things that were going to make us much more money and grow faster. Not that I'm like a fucking business mogul, right? But we do really well, and we're growing really fast. What else we got? Spreadsheet recommendation to manage your rentals books. My property managers use Appfolio or Buildium, and they just send us everything at the end of the year, a 1099 along with all like the profit and loss statements. That's it. I send them to the accountant. I don't think about it much more. I probably need to get QuickBooks up and running and have that all like, if we can have it sync, that would be great. They probably have it send in a QuickBooks file through those softwares. But yeah, that's all. I'm not big on like what's the software you use to make this happen. I'm big on what do you do to make this happen? Right? Like people go, what's the CRM you use? I go, who fucking cares? It's Salesforce. But who cares? You can do it with any CRM. What's the sales process you implement is a better question, right? I want you to think like that. Focus like that. How do I find out owners' information? We do it in bulk because we don't have time to really dig it up one by one. Now, when we've got an actual lead that's qualified, then our acquisitions reps will go ahead and dig in through PropStream. If you don't want to use PropStream because you don't use it often enough to justify paying $100 a month, you have county records on your side. You can dig in through the county assessor's site or the county treasurer's site for the particular property that you're chasing down and get some owner information out of that. What we got? Do your property managers collect all rents and disburse to me? Yes, they do. They disburse with a B, not disperse with a P. I'm a spelling Nazi. That would mean, disperse would mean like they go out to the ocean with it and they just like make it rain, right? Like, get out of here, money. Be free. That would be dispersing. They disperse the money to me automatically through these property management softwares on the 1st and 15th of each month, or the 30th and 15th of each month, I believe, is how it disperses. And it's just income and expense. Whatever's left extra in the account above the designated reserve in their accounts, I think it's like 200 per unit or something like that. They just send the extra to me afterwards. Sorry guys, I'm picky about spelling and I say silly shit sometimes. So this is what you get. Would I invest with Canada? I would not invest in Canada or with Canada. I hear their interest rates are really, really low, but properties are extremely overvalued. I don't know if that economy can support it. I don't know that market. You can get like a 1% interest rate though, but then you have to buy like a 4 cap. Like, fuck that. Not interested. There's a lot of opportunity here in the US and the tax benefits are better here too. So I prefer that. Where do I find the tax part of the savings plan? If you want to understand the tax savings stuff in gory detail, I do have an IGTV video on it. I was thinking about doing one next week. What do you guys think? Hit the like button hella times if you want to hear, instead of all the different things you can do to save money on your taxes, if you want a live next week on everything that I do that saves me the most money on my particular tax bill, I'll give you my little magic strategies. No one's hitting the like button, so you're just not going to get a tax. Oh, there we go. There you are. God, everyone wants to pay the IRS. Fucking wieners. Sorry, that wasn't very nice. Could someone purchase my properties with a loan? They could, but they've got to meet our bank's requirements and they've got to use our preferred lender, US Bank. They're dirt cheap. They're literally cheaper than any lender you'll find, but they do know and conform to our process well, and we can get predictable underwriting, predictable appraisals through them. So we really need to use them if you want to purchase with a loan. Otherwise, if you don't want to use them and you don't necessarily qualify with them, you got to buy cash, refinance after, which a lot of buyers are doing right now anyways, just to be competitive. So it's a crazy market. Can you go through your first few properties? My first property was my house. I house hacked it. I house hacked it because I knew I was losing my job a week after we closed. I had a contract job. I knew it was expiring. I was like, do not call the real person for verification of employment. Give these fucking lenders an automated voicemail for VOE. So my loan actually goes through. Fill the rooms up. I was eating steak off unemployment for like a week. I went back to work, right? I mean, I'm a workaholic. But I was eating steak off unemployment and then saving like $1,000 a month at that point still, because everyone paid for my rooms. And then I bought my parents a place. The goal with that was, I just had the money saved up. I had an insurance claim on my house that put some money in my pocket. I continued to save aggressively. It was about 2 years later. My parents were moving out of their rental. Rents were going up pretty rapidly. I wanted them to get out of the renter's mindset because they're getting old and didn't really have a retirement plan. And I knew that would eventually be on me. And I didn't know, like I wasn't making money like I am now. I was making 50 grand a year back then, 45 a year, right? But I wanted to push them into a property there. We got a good deal, $315 for a 4 and 2 in Sacramento in 2015. It's probably worth like $625 now or something like that. They've spent like $30,000 fixing it up a little bit. That was my second property. As soon as I had recuperated some savings after that, moved along to out of state, jumped into a $25,000 house in Hammond, Indiana. Fixed it up for 27, was gonna burr it, realized it was a stupid ass idea because if I'm gonna generate 20K in profits from selling it versus 300 a month and get my money back, why not just make that profit and do it again and again and again? And we did. And that year we quit our jobs in 4 months and made double our income each from our 6-figure jobs by not burring properties. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the burr method because you work as hard as a flipper, but you don't make as much money as them. Why the fuck would you do that? Unless you have too much cash, you don't want the profits for tax purposes, that's later down the road. We do that now. But even then, we under leverage our properties, so whatever. Am I ever going into commercial? I gotta learn the game, right? And like from a business strategy standpoint, maybe I'm small-minded or limited, but there's a lot of meat on the bone in our current business model in digital products, and then in generating a fund or syndication, right? But I think putting together a fund is gonna be more flexible because we have so many investors coming into this social media platform and we've gotten really good at finding discounted deals. So in my head, I'm thinking, shit, do I need to go commercial and go bigger in exchange for being able to find a discount? Or do we just drive investors to a platform where we can acquire more properties at discounted prices and give them that extra value in exchange for the volume of commercial that it brings, right? So that's a decision we're trying to make, but we have a lot of room in this residential business, especially this consumer product residential business that we're quite frankly doing really well in, right? And have a lot of room to grow. I think we're gonna stick around here for a while. In a different market environment, we might assess alternatives to our current business model when it's a little bit easier to get in, learn, and be a little bit new and still find good deals. I think that's a big motivator for us too. Right now, we're focusing on our superpower. Digital trumps all. Digital products are great. There's a hustle attached to it though. I've got to keep producing quality content for you guys, for you to come and buy our digital products. And I'm willing to now, and I think I will be for a very long time because I don't see myself wanting to stop doing this. It's a lot of fun. And it's rewarding getting people to get into something that I'm passionate about that got me to be financially very free. Not free from working, but very, very financially capable and stable and building a lot of wealth. So I'm passionate about it, but digital products are a grind and they aren't as tangible as the hard asset. There's an asset in the social platform, but the digital product itself is not the asset. It's just a single transaction, right? Favorite states to invest in right now: Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, Wisconsin. I wish the markets we liked in Wisconsin had more 4+ unit buildings. They don't. Instead, we find that type of product in Indiana, Tennessee, and Kentucky a little bit more readily because of just the type of asset that's abundant in those markets. Construction age, the regions that seem to work, the economic trends, all drive more 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, and even higher unit counts into our pipeline, much more than they do in Wisconsin for some reason. So it is what it is. What's up with the virtualization movement of investment real estate? I think it's caught, right? It's caught because of one, like technology, right? Like improved methods of communication over video and photo and accessibility to that. And then it's widespread. So like contractors have it too. Property managers are all doing it. The affordability squeeze of markets where technology has created like massive gentrification, right, means that they're not reasonable markets for cash flow or sometimes not for investing anymore. Like if you look at where all the out-of-state investors are coming from, they're from cities, the majority of them are coming from California and coming from tech hubs that have gotten really expensive because tech money is filling a lot of pockets for really fast. It's creating a lot of millionaires at a faster pace than we've seen since like the Industrial Revolution, right? And these people with all this tech money are wanting to go somewhere cheaper, and they're open-minded to this concept of using technology to own real estate, a tangible asset. And then through their demand, we've seen suppliers arise, like myself, and property managers and contractors that are willing to accommodate their needs. And it's created a trend of virtualization. And I think that trend of virtualization will bring up markets that were undervalued historically and remain undervalued because the buyer pool was restricted to the locals, right? And as soon as that buyer pool opens up to non-locals, then I think you see like a stabilization of value across markets nationwide. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing it in like owner-occupied housing. Think about it. Affordability is not much better in certain markets of Texas than it is in certain markets of California. And if you want to hear like a crazy thing that I've noticed a couple of weeks ago, I was just poking around at houses. I do like every Saturday morning, I wake up, have my coffee, and I look at houses for sale. Because I really want a new house. I've been living in my house since I was 22. It was very much my like first home. It's nice enough for sure. It's big enough. I'd like something a little bit nicer, maybe a slightly nicer neighborhood that I can like feel more comfortable in, especially if I want to start a family at some point. And they're just so expensive. So I just keep looking at these markets, and I've noticed, oddly enough, that the nice neighborhoods in Sacramento that I want to live in, a good house is about 1.2, 1.3. In Orange County or Irvine even, or Southern California, a lot of places in Southern California, even in like, Thousand Oaks is cheaper, but like in Irvine and Orange County, 100,000 more for the same house. And I'm like, whoa, Sacramento is almost as expensive as Southern California? That's fucking insane to me. And it's because of the technology money moving up, right? This remote trend of people with really full pockets going all over the country is creating a stabilized set of values in a variety of different places. So they're all moving to El Dorado Hills here in Sacramento, which is like 50 minutes from Tahoe, 45 minutes from Tahoe. They see it as like a place with amenities. I see it as the middle of fucking nowhere, and they're paying 1.3, 1.4 for those houses. And I can go pay 1.3, 1.4 and be in a place that's not hella hot and not as smoky as here. It's crazy. But I think we're seeing, like people able to scatter to wherever they want without as much geographic restriction anymore in investment and owner-occupied housing. And it's gonna change the way real estate is valued nationwide forever. I promise you guys. Dude, it's not like Sacramento is that cool either. Got good food and beer here, actually. Good food culture because it's a farm town. I'm 32 years old. I turned 32 this past June. So, I don't know, old, young, what did you guys think? You always see me freshly shaven too, because I tend to like cut my hair and shave on Thursdays. So I look half decent for these lives. So maybe you think I'm actually my age. Some people think I'm 40. Everyone's coming to Florida. Texas makes me scared to invest in. Everyone is coming to Florida, and Texas is kind of scary to invest in at its current valuations in a lot of different markets, I think so. I think a lot of places are scary to invest in right now. Most of them, with few exceptions that still have strong fundamental trends that are like not driven by speculation and like inflation fears. When I go through auctions, I don't like auctions. I see auctions as very similar to the MLS. It's like the MLS for distressed properties. And I don't like the MLS. I don't like competing with other people, right? They're willing to make less money than me. So I don't really love competing. And I don't like distressed properties. So I have no reason to be on the auction sites or short sales or foreclosures. I have not really much interest in those at all either. I like deep equity. I like non-distress. I like to get my deals through a gap in perceived value. I'll leave it at that. My opinion on flipping land. Don't know enough about it. People do it. They win all the time. If you can get something for less than what it's worth because someone thinks it's worth less and you already know people that think it's worth more, you're going to be a really good land flipper. Best state to invest in multifamily. I couldn't tell you, man. I couldn't give you a crystal ball, but from my strategy of yield, non-volatility, rent growth, and then an abundance of product within the range of product I like to play in, which is like, 2 to, or even 1, fuck it, but really 2 to 20 units, 30, 40 units even. I think Kentucky has a lot of product right now. It's a little boring for my taste. I like the trends in certain parts of Indiana a bit more, but they don't have as much of the product as Kentucky. Certain parts of Tennessee, for sure, but just not where you think. It's not around Nashville, and it's not Knoxville either. It's like northeastern Tennessee and like outside of Memphis, certain markets. I'll answer 2 or 3 more questions because I want to eat some fucking lunch, guys. And I'm hella tired. I'm going to tell you a funny story actually before I answer these questions. I'm tired. Yes, I do own pets. I have 2 dogs, and great timing for this particular story. I'm tired because last night, so I get a call at 12:30, double triple call from a buddy who's out of town. His dog's being dog sat, right? And he's like, yo man, I just had this guy like a mile away from my house just call me, blow me up, saying he has my dogs. They just he saw him running down the street. It's 12:30. He's like, there's no one at my house right now. Can you just get the dogs? So I get my ass up, get dressed, get to this guy's house. He's trying to talk. He's like, yo, what's up, bro? Hey, cool, dude, you guys are cool guys. We should go to the Little Lounge after this. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Dude, give me the dogs. I gotta get out of here. He gives us the dogs and take them back home. Now there's 4 dogs in my house, right? 4 dogs. I've got a 12-year-old husky. I've got a 2-year-old golden retriever. And my buddy's got 2 huskies that are, one of them's pretty crazy. The other one pretty chill. My golden loves guests. He loves visitors. So he's the whole night panting loudly out of excitement. And he's got this weird thing with huskies because my older dog's a husky and he growled at him a lot when he was a puppy. My golden thinks that when he sees huskies, the way to communicate with them is by growling a lot. He doesn't growl at anything. He growled so much all night at these dogs to try to get them to play. They're growling back and barking and howling. And I don't know, I think I didn't really fall asleep till like 4 and got up at like 6:30. So I'm pretty fucking tired. Dogs didn't fit in the vet, they fit in the Jeep. I've never put my dogs in the vet. I've never put my dogs in the vet. So yeah, I literally have 3 dogs slept in the vet last night with me. So I had a hell of a night. I need some food. I need to not drink too much of this. I need a nap. And I need a 3-day weekend really bad, guys. What am I going to get for lunch? The team here at the office goes and picks lunch every Friday. So I think they got Viet food today. And I just got like a steak bowl with some rice or something like that. How do I manage out-of-state rentals or out-of-state rehabs? Or do you just let the property manager handle the whole process? All right. Remember in the beginning of this live how I said you got to respect your property manager and that relationship and where you're at in the relationship? Look, if you're building a relationship with a friend or you're dating, you don't meet someone immediately then ask too much of them, right? You don't ask for too much information. You don't ask for them to do you any crazy favors. You don't expect too much attention from them. It's the same with property managers, right? So you want to start on their terms. Easy properties, especially when it's out of state. Don't ask. I mean, you want someone that has good contractors, but you don't want to request that assistance and that favor of them at a good price too, really early on. So just start with the easy project. Give them some business. Show them you're a good client. Show them you intend to build your portfolio and your relationship with them and that you have a value to provide to them through your consistent and predictable business. And then over time, introduce a little bit more work if they're willing to take it, right? You need to introduce a little bit more work over time. Don't take on a flip early on. I told a client of mine, he's like, yeah, I'm buying this duplex. It needs like $35,000 in like work where we found an inspection. I'm gonna have the management company walk through and see if they'll do it. I'm like, don't do that to them. They're gonna hate you and they're gonna upcharge you because you're not worth their priority low-cost crew at this point. So you're gonna get their convenience crew, the one that doesn't require their effort to oversee, that's gonna charge a premium. It's not gonna be a great deal for you. They're gonna be pissed off about the deal anyways. You're gonna be pissed off about the price that you spend in there. It's gonna be a lot of instability. They're not gonna make any money on it until the units are filled and the property is stable. Avoid that shit early on until you are somebody to them. And then take on a little bit more rehab gradually. Our management company that willingly does rehabs for us, we still wait. I've been waiting on one for 6 weeks. I don't care because I got the duplex for 30 grand. They did the roof immediately, but they're cosmetic guys. They're not available right now. They'll probably be available in a week or 2. And I'm gonna keep waiting because it's worth $140. So who cares? Not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. But they do us those favors because we send them units every week from other clients. And then we have like 40 or 50 of our own with them, right? That's why they do those favors for us. So be careful. Okay, so last question. This is a silly one and an easy one. How did we name our business Ace Properties or Invest with Ace? Let's see. My business partner and I were literally about to form an LLC to buy our first $25,000 house. No intention of making it this business. That was not the plan. We were just gonna buy like some rentals and let the cash flow accumulate over time, right? And we needed a name. So we were just typing in the name search. We're like, it's too hard to come up with a name. How about just Ace Properties? Because his dog's name was Ace. So we looked over like, Ace, that works. Fuck it, whatever, who cares? We didn't think it was gonna be a customer-facing business. And you know what, honestly, it doesn't matter that it is now. Like the name doesn't really mean shit. But yeah, we just turned around. His dog was sitting right there. We went, oh, Ace, cool. Ace Properties, plugged it in, signed it up. Keep moving, guys. And that's like in the same line of thought that comes with that whole, hey, don't worry about what kind of software I use for my sales management. Worry about my sales process, right? That's how you should think as an entrepreneur or a growing business owner or a budding investor, whatever it is. Just keep it moving. Don't get hung up on the little shit, guys. I'm about to go get hung up on this lunch and the rest of this whiskey. Thank you for joining. Have a great weekend, y'all. Hopefully this was helpful for you. I am going to post it on YouTube, so just give me a subscribe on there if you're watching this thing. And 3 days. Enjoy it. See y'all on Monday, Tuesday. I'm going to fucking be posting on Saturday too. What am I talking about? Peace, y'all.